Hello BookTube, welcome or welcome back to my channel Bouquets and Books. My name is Elizabeth and I am sitting on the floor. Why am I doing that? Because it's simpler like this. I have a book haul for you, and if I'm sitting on the floor, I have plenty of rooms where to put the books. Now you can't see that, but just right there, there's a big box, and it's not full of books, but there's a whole bunch of books in there, about 20 of them. You may remember from a few videos ago, I was emptying the bookcase in my bedroom, my childhood bedroom, I should say, because my parents are leaving the what until now was the family house, and they are moving into an apartment, so that means that the house has to be emptied. And I emptied the bookshelves in my bedroom, and then I asked, anyone else needs help emptying bookshelves? And basically my father said, yes, just take anything you want. And I did. There's not a million books in there. There was not a ton of them, but there were some very interesting ones. In the 1950s, he was subscribed to a book club, so something like Book of the Month. He received a book every month. I think he could choose it, and if he did not choose it, he would receive this default selection. I don't think he kept them all, but there's a bunch of them that he kept, and I decided to bring them all home with me. And I also rescued other books, so they are not necessarily from this book club edition, but as you will see, there are some nice books in there. At least they're interesting. It's not the type of books that we necessarily see every day. So I'm going to start with the book club books, which are all from the 1950s, so 1956, 57, so that's the 2 years, not even 2 years. He said he subscribed to the book club about a year and a half. He doesn't remember exactly. And it was 1956, definitely, a bit 1957, and there are some books that were originally published earlier than that, and then they were just reprinted for the book club. How do I know it's for a book club? Well, they kind of all have the same size, but also there's something, it says here, book club edition. So I know it's from a book club. So first book in the haul, Daphne du Maurier, Marianne. So this is by the author of My Cousin Rachel, as we all know, and Mary Ann, who sparked the liveliest scandal ever to rock the House of Commons. Her childhood was spent in London's grubby Fleet Street, where she helped her stepfather by proofreading copy when he was too ill to hold his job in a printer's shop. Then, to escape the advances of the gentleman for whom she went to work as a housekeeper, she hastily married a young ne'er-do-well. That's it. I don't want to read any farther than this. That's all I want to know. So the first book is Daphne du Maurier, so it starts really, really well. Next is another great women author, Pearl S. Buck, Imperial Woman. I'm not even going to read the inside for this one. I'm just going to read the cover. An historical novel about the last empress of China. In youth, a beautiful concubine. In middle life, a brilliant strategist. In old age, a goddess. That's an awesome biography. I don't think I've read any full book by Pearl S. Buck. I think I've read short stories by her, but not a full book. Oh, and there's a bunch of readathons coming up this summer, and several of the books will fit the readathons. So this one will fit very well with Shelley Swearingen's brand new readathon, which is about historical fiction. So I'm going to leave a link in her description box to I'm going to leave a link to her channel in my description box below, and you can go check out the prompts that she had prepared for the historical readathon. That is in June 2024. So, Imperial Women. Next, we have Island in the Sun, a novel by Alec Waugh. I don't know if it's related with Evelyn Waugh. I don't know at all the author, so what this says, it says, this novel is a brilliant and distinguished book, a story with tension and excitement. It is a vivid tale of violence and suspense against the background of a sun-drenched island in the West Indies. Well, it dates from the 1950s. Today we would say the Caribbean, probably. A few casual words spoken at a cocktail party in Santa Marta, an attractive girl arriving at a reception in London, a stalled engine that starts a minute too soon. These lead directly to the ouster of a cabinet minister, the recall of a governor, the downfall of a demagogue, and a new career for a slipping gossip columnist. Now, this sounds just pure fun. The cover is a bit damaged. Doesn't matter. The cover is still beautiful with all the orange and yellow and just the sun. A lot of sun. I'm in the shadows. There's sun there. Next, The Living Lotus by Ethel Mannin, another author I do not know. The eternal conflict between East and West has seldom been more poignantly dramatized than in this absorbing and touching novel of the brutal uprooting of a Burmese child bride by her British father. That's it. I don't want to read anymore. So that was just the beginning of the flap there. And there's not a word said about who the author is. Oh, and on the back cover, we have Great Writers on Reading. So it's quotes by Montaigne, Edward Gibbon, Walt Whitman, Henry David Thoreau, and Anthony Trollope. So let's read Trollope. What does he say? Book love, my friends, is your pass to the greatest, the purest, and the most perfect pleasure that God has prepared for his creatures. It lasts when all pleasures fade. It will support you when all other recreations are gone. It will last you until your death. It will make your hours pleasant to you as long as you live. Great. And next, okay, so sorry, it does. I was distracted. I think there's a little bug flying around me, and it's just distracting me. Anyway, let's move on. Next book, The Conqueror's Wife by Noel B. Gerson. I do not know that author either. Obviously another historical fiction, so another good one for Shelley's readathon. It says, it starts with a quote. Father, I will not marry that bastard. So declared the lovely Lady Matilda, as willful as she was wealthy, and one of the cleverest women in Christendom. But proud Matilda soon found not merely her match, but her master, in Duke William, later known as William the Conqueror. Her master. 1950s. William, the natural son of Robert the Devil, Duke of Normandy, at 19 had wrested his duchy by force from lawless barons. Since then, he had subjugated most of Europe, and he lost no time in conquering the heart of Matilda. Their marriage was a union of wealth and power. Ooh, and there's a map. Ooh, I love a good map. So that's a good sign if there's a map in the paper. Oh, and there's color on the top. So a beautiful book. And again, it says book club edition. So all these books have this mention. So sometimes it's in red and sometimes it's in black, but it all says book club edition there. Another book from the book club. The 6th of June by Lionel Shapiro. So this, I was about to say this is a historical novel. Not at all. If it was published in the 1950s and it's about the Second World War, because it says a novel of World War II, it's not historical. It was written like 10 years after, so it's a very contemporary. 6th of June, that's D-Day. A powerful novel of love and war set against the background of England in the Blitz. That's not D-Day. Okay, that's not D-Day. World War II was more than a historical event. It was a deeply personal, emotional experience for all who lived through it, overseas and at home. This novel whirls the reader back to that time, which was like 10 years earlier. When was this published? Come on, copyright. Copyright 1955, so it's just 10 years earlier. So this novel whirls the reader back to that time and that experience, to the fevered years in America, to blitz-torn London, to the beauty, love, and mounting terror that marked the progression of the war to its magnificent climax, the D-Day assault on the 6th of June. Okay, so it's D-Day. So I won't read anything more than that. So this is going to be great for BookTube at War. This is a readathon. It was held for the first time last year, so I don't know if it's going to come back this year. Hopefully it will. It's in July, and the prompt is simply to read books about war. So that fits perfectly. And I think I have quite a few more books on that topic, which is not surprising that my father was interested in that, because in 1956-7, he was, I'm not going to say just out of the army, but pretty much. Yeah, I think he got out of the army in 1955. So, Yeah, he was just out of the army, so yeah, not surprised that he's interested in books about war. Next one is The Wings of Night by Thomas H. Raddle, and it is a novel of Nova Scotia, so a Canadian book. It was spring in Nova Scotia when Neil Jameson returned to Oak Falls. Wild and resentful, he had run away 14 years before. Now, still blustering and belligerent, educated but not subdued, he took a fresh look at the citizens of Oak Falls, and particularly at the timber town's decaying sawdust aristocracy. So if it's contemporary, so if it's not historical fiction, it's contemporary in the 1950s. Decaying is probably the word, because I know that in the Atlantic provinces in the it started in the 1960s probably, but it was a period of transition, and times were hard, and they were hard for a long time in the Atlantic provinces of Canada, 1960s, 70s. So fisheries closing, coal mine closings, and probably timber closing because there probably simply was not enough. Well, not enough. It's not like Nova Scotia was completely devoid of trees, but it's just that if machinery can handle the big forest of the Canadian North, well, not that much north, but like north of civilization, I'm going to say north, like a few hours north of Montreal, a few hours north of Toronto, and you have wide expanses of forests like in Siberia. And yeah, so I suppose that Nova Scotia cannot really compete with that. So I would not be surprised if there's a bit of economic downfall involved in there. Next we have Tender Victory by Taylor Caldwell. I suspect that this is one of the months where my father didn't choose anything and was sent the book by default, because that doesn't sound up his alley at all. Just like this, just the cover. To this new novel, Taylor Caldwell brings all her talent for blah, 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 blah. Tender Victory is the story of a courageous man and the impact of his triumphant faith upon a dying town. So this appears to be a religious novel. So we see that the Bible, I suppose, there. And there's the church in the back. So it is a grey day when young Johnny Fletcher arrives in Barryfield to take up his new ministry after the war. The mining and industrial community is covered with a heavy pall of smoke and smog, which seems to indicate its defeated spirit. Its people do not take kindly to this good-humoured and resourceful man of God, whose Christianity infuses every act and word. But his uncompromising faith, which disturbs their complacency, is not the only unsettling thing about Johnny. There is also his family, in quotation marks, a group of 5 orphaned refugee children whom he adopted while an army chaplain in Europe, in the hope of winning them back to a meaningful life by understanding and love. Okay. We are very, very far from the war novel. Yeah, there's no way my father chose that book. It was sent to him. It was the default book, the one nobody wanted, so they would send it to any member who did not pick a book. It could be interesting. It doesn't look like it's been read, though it's hard to tell with so many years, because the pages are yellowed anyway, but yeah, I don't think he read it. Though the cover is a bit broken. But then again, if the book has made it to 2024, so if the book is actually 70 years old, it went through quite a few changes of home, because my father's not, the house where we live did not exist 40 years ago. Where we live, I don't live there anymore, but the house where I grew up and that my parents are emptying did not exist 40 years ago, so the book has moved quite a few times, I suppose. Next one, The Enormous Shadow by Robert Harling, a Harper novel of suspense. No, that's more like it. Says of this novel, blah, blah, blah. The London Times says, blah, blah, blah. The Daily Telegraph says, blah, blah, blah. Rex Warner, who is that, says, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of blurbs. What is this book that has aroused such advanced enthusiasm? Thank you, that's the question. It is the story of a journalist called back from an American assignment to explore for his London paper the careers of the younger MPs. His series of stories is a successful one, and then, after he has run a story on an able young Labour MP named Matthew Chance, he receives an anonymous note saying, "Ask your precious Mr. Chance about Professor Lewis." I don't want to know more. That's it. So that's a suspense. That should be fun summer read. Next. So the last two books in that series of... Sorry. Yeah, the floor might not be as comfortable as I thought. So the last two books, as I was saying, in this series of books from the book club. Marjorie Morningstar by Herman Wouk. Yes, I suppose it could have been the opposite. It could have been Herman Wouk by Marjorie Morningstar. But no, it's Marjorie Morningstar by Herman Wouk. New novel is a love story, really. The chief figures are Marjorie Morgenstern, a pretty Jewish girl of Manhattan who at 17 sets out to become an actress, and Noel Ehrman, the brilliant enigmatic rake, I love a rake, with whom she falls in love. Crowded with portraits, the story ranges wide in space and time. Broad, colorful scenes unroll of college romance, of theater struggles, of family clashes, above all, of a love affair that racks the lives as it blazes a reeling course from the Adirondacks to Broadway to Paris. This long novel, how long is it? Oh my, 472 pages. But the print is, the font is really, really small. Compared to the others, like compared to, oh no, it's the same. No, it's not the same. It's not the same at all. Is it the same? No, it's not. The pages seem much more packed in this one. Anyway, this long novel is written with the power, clarity, and humor which made Mr. Wouk's The Cane Mutiny memorable. And in his intimate picture of a girl growing into womanhood through the stresses of passion, he breaks new ground in his storytelling career. Okay, we'll see. And next, the last one, which I have to say I think is the one that I want to read the most. Sword and Scalpel by Frank J. Slaughter. That's a name. It doesn't appear to be a pen name because his picture is there. Maybe it's a pen name, I don't know. So this is a novel of the Korean War. Again, another good choice for BookTube at War. Did I mention who BookTube at War was hosted by? It was an idea that was suggested by a subscriber, a commentator on the channel of Michael Vaughn. So Michael Vaughn is like the main host, I suppose, and there were many other hosts. Anyway, link in the description box below. This one, at first I thought, I remembered the television show and the movie MASH. I know that it was inspired by a book. So I thought, oh, is this the book that inspired it? Because Sword and Scalpel, it's about doctors, and the author says on the back, he is a skilled and respected surgeon in Jacksonville, and he started to write as a hobby. So I thought, oh, maybe that's the one that inspired MASH. But no, it's not. It's a different book. But anyway, I expect a lot from that short book. Perhaps I should not. Well, sure, it's not that short. It's about 300 pages. The news report said, now I'm quoting the news report, tomorrow in San Francisco's Presidio, Captain Paul Scott of the Army Medical Corps, fresh from 2 years in a Chinese prisoner of war camp, faces court-martial for treason. Why would a Johns Hopkins alumnus, a surgeon with a brilliant record and a clear-cut future before him, prefer capture by the North Korean forces to a dash for liberty with his own outfit? Why did he begin to collaborate with those captors almost from the first moment? How, in short, could he commit this outrage against his conscience, his country, and his God? 3 people could help, and the report is stopped. 3 people could help answer these questions. Paul Scott, the accused, the cowardly drunken Colonel Jasper Hardin, ex-commanding officer of Paul's unit, and Kay Story, Paul's fiancée, who had been captured with him and Colonel Hardin while on frontline USO tour. while on a frontline USO tour. They had gone to the prison camp together, had endured the enemy's bestiality and the deprivations and hardships of PW life, and now they were to meet again in the grim atmosphere of the court-martial to revive the painful past and bring the truth to light. It sounds great. It sounds like a lot of fun. So it's not so much, well, I thought it would be a bit like MASH, but obviously it's not about really, well, maybe it is, I don't know. I suspect because Scalpel is involved that our surgeon probably helped, Captain Paul Scott probably helped quite a few people survive, and it was for medical reasons that he decided not to escape, I suspect. But it looks like a lot of fun. So that ends the books from the book club. Hello, this is Sweaty Me from a few days later. I am back at my parents' place in front of an empty bookcase, as you can see, and I found 3 more books from the collection, the book club edition collection of my father. So the first 2 are Stories to Remember. So these are collections of short story selected by Thomas B. Costain and John Beecroft, sorry. Volume 1 and Volume 2. So in Volume 1 we have both on the back. We have Mowgli's Brothers by Kipling, yes. The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry, Lord Mount Drago by W. Somerset Maugham, Music on the Muscatatuk, From the Friendly Persuasion by Jessamine West. Jasmine, that's what's written. The Birds by Daphne du Maurier, The Men Who Lived 4,000 Years, from the novel The Queen's Necklace by Alexandre Dumas, The Pope's Mule. Anyway, oh, that's from Daudet. So a whole bunch of, look at that. So that's the Volume 1 and that's Volume 2. So that's the cover for Volume 1. Yes, that's the cover for Volume 1, and that is the cover for Volume 2. In the Volume 2 we have, and I did not name everyone in Volume 1, in Volume 2, in Volume 2 I also have the ones my father read. There's a tick, 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 tick. So these are the ones he read. He read Volume 2 more than Volume 1. So we have short stories or excerpts from novels by Thornton Wilder, Eleanor Mersenne Kelly, A.E. Coppard, Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings, Edith Wharton, O. Henry, Hans Christian Andersen, Conrad Richter, Robert Louis Stevenson, Guy de Maupassant, Max Beerbohm, Percival Wilde, Edmund About, Emily Bronte, and Enid Bagnold. So that's these 2, and the last one that I found is this one, and I found it of all places in the garage. So Anna Fowler by Janice Holt Gall. So this is the author, and it is a historical novel set in Kentucky. So Samuel Moore and his daughter Hannah set out for the border country with a party led by George Rogers Clark, but left the others to strike out on their own. When Samuel gashed his leg with an axe and blood poisoning set in, Anna faced the wilderness alone with a dying man. It was then that Tice Fowler, on his way to Logan's Fort, stumbled on them after Samuel died. He took Anna back to the fort. So, yeah, it's the story of Anna Fowler. So, again, another great candidate for the historical readathon. Historical Fiction Readathon, right. So, that's it. Back to the main footage. But that doesn't end the books from the 1950s. I have a couple of the books, maybe more than a couple of the books. No, just a few of the books from the 1950s, 60s, around that time. From the 1950s. And for the upcoming readathon, June on the Range, again hosted by, among other people, Michael K. Vaughan, My Gun is My Law by Will Ehrman. The book is not in good condition, not at all. It's going to fall apart when I'm going to read it, if I read it. It is a pocket book, and it was, I don't know if you can see the price, 25 cents. 25 cents. Oh, we can see it clearly here. 25 cents. Though I suspect this is the Oh, no, I was about to say, I suspect this is the American prize, but no, it says printed in Canada. So printed in Canada, so I suppose it's a Canadian prize. 25 cents for a book. So I don't know exactly what the story is. It's a Western, who cares? So there's this guy who gets shot in the back. Ooh, that's not very honorable. Okay, I'm going to read the back cover. For 40 years, a death-dealing feud had been whittling down the Cameron and Gordon families. Now, besides old rusty Cameron and Stonewall Gordon, only proud Nisha Gordon and broad-shouldered, straight-shooting Cape Cameron were alive. Okay, that's it. Oh, there's a bit of romance. The night Cape took Nisha in his arms, he knew what his brash act meant. The two young people had decided to face the wrath of their fathers and put an end to the senseless, bloody feud. There's a romance in it. Ooh! Okay, I'm going to read that for June on the Range. And then another readathon that will, I suppose, happen this year, probably for its third year in August, will be Garbaugust, where we are invited to read books that are, well, the name says garbage, but books that are published for purely commercial reasons, for entertainment purposes only. They don't pretend to be the greatest literature ever written. They're not vying for book prizes. They are not trying to find the meaning of life. It's garbage. And we have Framed in Blood by Brett Halliday. Oh, a Michael Sheen murder mystery. Oh, it's a murder mystery. Oh, might not be garbage. Ooh. We have a map on the back, always great. So that was New York, Biscayne, Miami. Gosh, I can't read. Miami. Tommy Gunn's Girls Blackmail Death by Bullets and Blackjacks. One Violent Night with Michael Sheen. That is garbage. That is garbage. When we promise you bullets and blackjacks and girls and blackmail and death and Tommy Guns in a single night of violence, yeah. Was it an act or accident she left the door open? Oh no, please don't blame the victim. If they blame the victim, it's garbage. Anyway, it's a small little thing. The book saw better days. There's water damage, as you can see. And it is also falling apart. Doesn't matter. So that one is from, let's check the year, 1951. So that's probably the oldest book in this pile. Next, another one that is a good candidate, well, I suppose, maybe not for Garbaugust, but also for, it's not a readathon. It's an initiative by MJ from Reading This Life. Yes, Reading This Life. And she proposes that in 2024, we read 24 books that are banned or challenged. And here we have, after 714 years of suppression, so that book was banned, and this is Fanny Hill by John Clellins, and it is Memoirs of a Woman of Pleasure. So this one was published in the 1700s. Originally, obviously, not this book. This particular copy was printed in 1963. First paperback edition. Well, there we go. A book of great value. Anyway, so a classic in a way. So that one would be good for, yeah, Garbaugust, I suppose. The Memoirs of a Woman of Pleasure. I don't think that McClellan is aiming for literature there. I don't know, maybe. Then another one that I've read years ago, I noticed it was there and I read it. So this is Two Solitudes by Hugh MacLennan. So this one is a classic of Canadian literature. It's about how, if I remember correctly, it's set in Montreal. And the expression two solitudes keeps being used in politics and in, I don't know, whenever people talk about the situation in Canada with francophones and anglophones and somehow living side by side but being unable to understand one another. So Two Solitudes. It's a very good book. I really liked it. And then one in French, which is quite rare, as you can see. So all these books so far have all been in English, so there's no doubt they are my father's books. And this one is in French, but I'm sure it's my father's books too, because, well, it was in his bookcase. But also the topic, another one that will be good for Booktube at War. This one is nonfiction, and it is La crise, la conscription, 1942. So the conscription crisis, that we could translate it by André Laurando. So what happened was that, 1942 was World War II, and by that time Canada had been at war for 3 years, and there were elections coming up, and the question of conscription just sort of was being discussed. And of course, the problem was that if you promised conscription, you would lose all the French-Canadian votes. And if you did not promise conscription, you would lose all the English votes, votes of the English-speaking votes. So, English speakers' votes. Of course, I'm exaggerating. It's not that clear-cut, but basically that's what it meant. And it was a crisis because do you vote conscription and risk not an uprising, but you risk somewhat some civil unrest might be a strong word, but there was something risky about promising conscription, and there was something equally risky with not promising conscription. So yeah, so that's an interesting period in Canadian history. It's rather short. This book is about 150 pages. André Laurando is an intellectual in French Canada. He was part of a group of not stand-up comedians, but of comedians sort of making fun on the radio and on television of politicians and comment, a bit like The Daily Show. Of course, it was not The Daily Show, but a bit like Jon Stewart. They were making jokes and commenting on the situation, and not just the political situation, but yeah. But he also is a philosopher, a journalist, that's the word that I'm looking for, a very respected journalist. So this should be very, very interesting. Anyway, I've been speaking too long about this book. Sitting on the floor was a bad idea. It's just not comfortable. Next. 2 more books. They are not from the 1950s. This one is from, I'll try to let you guess, from 1967. So it's going to be another good choice for Booktube at War. The author is Alistair MacLean. And can you guess the title? No, you can't. It's not there at all. It's Where Eagles Dare. There you can see the title. So the book has lost its cover, its dust jacket. So I don't know exactly what the story is. But Where Eagles Dare, I know it's a World War II book. I know that. And I suspect it involves planes because of eagles fly. So I suspect. The other one is definitely about planes and World War II. It is Cornelius Ryan, A Bridge Too Far. This is a big book, though I don't know if it's fiction or non-fiction. That's the thing. I don't know if it's fiction or non-fiction. It doesn't say a novel. The greatest military gamble of World War II and almost the greatest disaster. Arnhem, where the most prestigious Allied generals gambled with their reputation and the lives of their finest troops. Arnhem, where Germany's most brilliant military commander was called back into service by Hitler to achieve a miracle and came close to succeeding. Arnhem, where over twice as many Allied soldiers fell than at Normandy and where feats of incredible heroism were commonplace. Arnhem, where a war that was almost won was almost lost. A Bridge Too Far. Ooh, it's non-fiction. How do I know that? There's a bibliography, there are endnotes, there is an index, there's an appendix. So it's gotta be non-fiction. Ooh, and there are pictures in the middle. Ooh, pictures. Black and white pictures. Oh. It's an old book. I just broke its back. Yep. I just broke its back just right there in the middle. Anyway, so for Booktube at War, it's going to be a good choice. Next, the other 3 books, they are hardcovers and much, much more recent. One of them will fit next year's People April or Nonfiction November. The Duchess of Windsor. The Secret Life by Charles Higham. I guess that's how it's pronounced. So this is the Duchess of Windsor, and this is the biography. She lived a life that captivated the world. She lived a love story that forever changed the nation's destiny. She was Wallis Warfield Simpson, Duchess of Windsor, one of the most mysterious and fascinating women of the century. So it's a biography of the Duchess of Windsor. I'm trying to remember if I read this book. I think I probably read it when I was a teenager. I had a fascination for the royal family, and I just read so many books about the royal family. I'm sure I've read this one, but I don't remember much about it. It was published in 1988. So, $4.99. So, I don't know. I'm trying to think, why would my father buy this? As far as I know, he doesn't have any particular fascination for the royal family. For Wallis Simpson? What is my father doing with that book? Anyway, I'll ask him. He probably doesn't remember. He probably doesn't remember. Oh, next. The next two. They are very recent, and one of them, again, very good for BookTube at War, The Damned. The Canadians at the Battle of Hong Kong and the Prisoner of War Experience, 1941 to 1945, by Nathan M. Greenfield, not Grenfield. And it's a non-fiction about, well, Canadians in Hong Kong. There's nothing more to say about this. It just looks very interesting. And the other one is by an author that I know, Simon Winchester. It is Atlantic. And it is great sea battles, heroic discoveries, titanic storms, and a vast ocean of a million stories. So this just sounds super interesting. It's a history of the Atlantic. Ooh, look at that. The Titanic? Is it the Titanic? Oh, no, it's the Titanic, the Olympic, and the other one. Is that it? Are you going to tell me? Where am I going to get the answer? Come on. No. Also by Simon Winchester. That's not what I'm looking for. Grateful acknowledgement, design. All interior photographs unless otherwise noticed are from the author's private collection. For those photographs and end paper images that are the exception, grateful acknowledgement is made to the following: front and back end papers, Fox Photos, Getty's Image. Yeah, that doesn't tell you what's on it. Jacket design, jacket illustrations. No, it's not the Titanic. I don't know what it is. Anyway, it's a beautiful picture. And I've spoken too much. If you think that I'm speaking too much because I'm drunk, because that's a cider, the answer is no. I thought a cider would be nice, and I tried a new sort, and I don't like it at all. It's not good. I don't like it. It's not sweet. I like my drinks very sweet, and it's not sweet at all, and it has a taste that is just, I don't know, rotten. Yeah, I suppose that technically cider is rotten apples, but it's not supposed to taste like rotten apples, and this one does. So it's probably going to end up in the drain. So yeah. Anyway, so that's it for me. And that's it for me. Thank you everyone for watching. If you read any of these books, let me know in the comments which ones are more interesting than the others, or if they are terribly bad, or anyway, have a nice day. The week is over. I should go to bed. Well, maybe not. It's early. I'm going to read a little bit and then I'll go to bed. So have a nice day, a nice week, a nice time, and I'll see you in the next video. À la prochaine.